Welcome, everybody. This is the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Human Services, and it will come to order. Appreciate all of you being here today, and we're going to have testimony from some of our wonderful providers, and also the, say the name for me, Janet.
Michigan Federation for Children and Families.
There we go.
Yes.
Appreciate that. And, oh, okay. We should probably do that first, shouldn't we? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Chair Roth,
Here.
Vice Chair Kelly,
Here.
Representative Mueller,
Here.
Representative Beeson,
Here.
Representative DeSanta,
Here.
Vice Chair Edwards, Representative Longjohn.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And we're going to have Representative Mueller moves to approve the minutes of February 24th. There being no objections, the minutes have been approved. All right. Today, stakeholder presentations will be the Child Welfare Services. That's our realm. But we have Janet Reynolds, Snyder, President of CEO of Michigan Federation for Children and Families. Rachel Sykes. We have her from the Vice President of Family Services at Samaritas. Ursula Ahart, welcome. Executive Director, Federation of Youth Services. Mr. Dan Gowdy, Dr. Dan Gowdy, make sure you get that right. President CEO, Wedgwood Christian Services. So appreciate you all being here today. We always like to hear from all of you, and the Federation, of course, is wonderful, and love to have you here. So please, whenever you're ready, whoever wants to start first, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Roth and members of the committee. We really appreciate the chance to be here today. I am Janet Reynolds Snyder, President and CEO of the Michigan Federation for Children and Families. And I also just want to take note that today is the Federation's Executive Legislative Day, and so we have a number of our members in the room representing organizations throughout the state of Michigan, providing all kinds of outstanding services to children and families throughout the state. The Federation is a statewide membership association representing more than 60 private, nonprofit, community-based organizations that contract and work in partnership with the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services to deliver a full network of child welfare and behavioral health services across all 83 counties in Michigan. The Federation has been in existence since 1969, and in that time has served as a trusted partner with legislative and state leaders advancing public policy and practice that supports high-quality services for children and families. The mission of the Federation is to influence public policy and practice in support of the highest quality services for children and families. Our member organizations are mission-driven organizations dedicated to family well-being outcomes in their local communities. Because of their deep connections there in the local communities, they are uniquely positioned to coordinate support and services that meet the specific needs of families, providing services and positive outcomes for the overall health and well-being of children and the adult caregivers in their lives using a multi-generational approach in communities throughout Michigan. With that in mind, and it's interesting to note that nearly 100% of all family preservation, adoption, and residential treatment services statewide are provided by community-based organizations. More than 55% of foster care and a significant percentage of juvenile justice services also provided by the private agencies. Federation members also provide home visiting, counseling, and behavioral health services throughout the state. But community-based organizations really are the backbone for Michigan's systems of services for children and families while working in partnership with Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. As we're here today talking about fiscal impacts and budget priorities for fiscal year 27, we all know that budget decisions directly shape stability and effectiveness of Michigan's continuum of care and the opportunity for child and family engagement. The Federation's fiscal year 27 budget priorities are designed to close funding gaps and reinforce system stability. We support the governor's executive boilerplate recommendation in section 546.2 to ensure appropriate funding for youth served in Independent Living Plus programs and maintain structured placement for older youth with higher needs. We're also requesting your support for closing the foster care funding gap by increasing the administrative per diem to $70 to reflect actual operating costs and ensure and support placement stability. We're asking for full funding of adoption services with an additional $4.9 million appropriation, investing an additional $8 million into family preservation services to expand access and serve approximately 25% more of the eligible families, and strengthening recruitment and retention in Michigan's publicly funded behavioral health system by adding $1.5 million to the behavioral health loan repayment program for nonprofit providers, and providing a one-time $2 million appropriation to help providers develop new services and infrastructure to increase placement capacity for youth with complex and acute behavioral health needs when a higher level of care is needed. Representative Roth, Mr. Chair, as you have introduced, members here today are leaders from a number of our Federation organizations. Will provide more direct examples of how these investments translate into measurable outcomes for children and families in your communities. We are very grateful for the committee's leadership and for your continued commitment to high-quality, equitable continuum of care. And the Federation looks forward to continued partnership with you to ensure that every child and every family in Michigan has equitable access to the services and supports that they need. And with that, I will turn the floor over to Rachel Sykes. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you, Janet. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for inviting us to testify before your committee, Chair Roth. And I'll just say it's an understatement to say how incredibly thankful we are for the work that you're doing. And we recognize the hard choices that you are faced with as you approach critical decision-making time for the fiscal year 27 budget. Many of you joined this committee because of your personal experiences and deep commitment to helping Michigan children, youth, and families thrive. Samaritas is also deeply passionate about our state's children and families. We believe in compassion in action. As one of the largest health and human service nonprofit agencies in the state with a 92-year history of care, child welfare and family well-being services are a priority service line at our agency with a broad continuum of care that spans family preservation, foster care, independent living, youth services, and adoption. As Janet noted, building thriving families is a community effort, and all communities, all districts need to care for our children. At Samaritas, we value your partnership and the partnership with MDHHS as we strive to simultaneously uplift current programs that are critical to family needs and to engage forward actions to promote innovation and systems change desperately needed at this time to ensure safety and well-being. I'll brief you on 3 programs, noting some areas that need your attention and your strong support. The first is Family Preservation Services, which stabilize crisis situations, strengthen protective factors, and support children in remaining safely at home, avoiding unnecessary entry into the foster care system. This is whole family funding, and right now the state is limited to just 4,400 families. Currently, Family Preservation Services are also 100% privatized. Success rates in family preservation are high. 90 to 95% of families served do not require out-of-home placement for children during active services, and up to 85% are reported to be stabilized with their children remaining in the home, free of abuse and neglect, at 12 months after services are closed. These programs also boast high parent satisfaction rates and are innovatively structured to include 2-gen families structuring, mentioned by Janet, as well as trauma-informed, evidence-based modalities eligible for federal FFPSA funding compensation, aimed at building parental resilience, parenting skills, concrete needs, social supports, and social-emotional support for children. A recent thank you letter from a parent put it this way: "This program has given me extreme confidence in my life. I have more self-respect than I did before. I also know how to successfully tackle tasks and prioritize goals for my day-to-day family life and to follow through with them. With a cost comparison of just $7,000 per family averaging 3 children versus $30,000 for one child's service in foster care per year, service expansion ultimately results in significantly lower costs to the state when we can mitigate out-of-home placements and stabilize families. On behalf of Samaritas and these agencies, we would like to ask you to release that $8 million appropriation to serve 25% more children. That's 1,100 more families, as Janet mentioned. In foster care, in the event that risk of child safety and well-being is too high, or abuse or neglect has been substantiated, our system must include fully funded, robust foster care services. Approximately 10,000 children are placed in foster care. And as Janet mentioned, 55% of foster care agencies are the ones delivering services for this service line. Foster care must be considered temporary, and we are all committed to work diligently to move children through the service, returning children home safely, or providing a child with another safe family alternative. Our best outcome, again, is strengthening the entire family unit and reunifying children with their parents to keep families strong and intact. Our goal is to reunify within 12 months. And foster care programs need substantial funding and contract reconsiderations. The program and policies designed decades ago are insufficient to meet the goal. We must advance this line with great care and intention. Risks are high, stakes are high, and each year, despite effective family preservation programs that are managing low and moderate risk cases, the acuity of the children in the out-of-home care services now is rising. A removal means abuse or neglect has been substantiated and the safety of child is at imminent risk. Parents need more support and services that are readily available to resolve deeper, more complex, and challenging issues that led to these circumstances, such as substance use and drug addiction, domestic violence, significant mental health needs, incarceration, all of which usually come with secondary but equally complex challenges related to social determinants of health, like lack of stable employment, affordable housing, access to physical, medical, and mental health care, education, parenting skills, and access to healthy food. Many of these things that you are all very concerned about right now. While these issues are addressed, foster care depends on caregivers to safely house and nurture children who are removed. A strong network of trained and licensed foster families and relative caregivers are necessary. Right now, 50% of children removed are placed with relatives. Relatives often have very little time to prepare and adjust to this enormous responsibility. We fully support teaming with MDHHS to elevate kinship care, and we need to support to continue to shift policies to widen this path. But we must continue to rely heavily on licensed foster homes when relatives cannot assist. Our fostering community is valiant and caring, and we are currently burning through them. On the front lines, the staff, foster families are seeing the shifts and the trends of high acuity firsthand in their homes. Foster families hold the pieces when services are delayed and children are breaking down. These children often lose everything. Children need their families and communities and their culture. Moving children out of their homes and neighborhoods adds other losses. Loss of friends, a familiar school, teachers, even pets. The stress of parental separation and removal, the transfers and transitions exacerbate the trauma children carry. Comfort items such as clothes, familiar foods, smells, and the ways children learn to find safety in a known environment are all gone. New environments have to be tested and trusted. Told not to talk to strangers, all the adults around them are strangers. Despite great effort, often siblings are separated into different foster homes as well. Older siblings whose job it was to take care of the little ones may only see them once a month, or more if they're lucky, and they worry about each other. We try desperately to keep them in one solid, stable placement. With acuity on the rise, the burden weighs heavily on caregivers for that commitment. Our foster families offer safe places to heal from serious abuse, neglect, and loss incurred. But this takes time and often more skill than foster families alone can provide. Many long-term foster families have begun to close their licenses. As we work to bring new families aboard, we are also faced with a new trend of 30 to 50% of new families quitting within the first year. The shortage of foster parents is increasing every day. Reducing turnover and helping these families bravely walk forward is critical to stabilizing placements. The burden is heavy, so we attempt to bring some relief through augmentative programs that uplift caregivers and stabilize placements, such as foster care supportive visitation, respite programs, enhanced foster care with clinical staffing, case aids, in-home care aids, and capacity building training for caregivers. But these workarounds draw from already tight budget lines. Sadly, recent trends in foster care case managers turnover add further complications. Case manager turnover is anywhere from 23 to 60% in our services in this state. In foster care, despite more concentrated training and support, many are leaving within the first 90 days. This churn delays permanency, disrupts services, and takes a real toll on the children and families. My colleague Dan will touch more on this in a bit. On behalf of private foster care agencies statewide, I urge you to band together to fully fund foster care services. These children are wards of the state. They are a responsibility. The estimated gap to support placement, as Janet mentioned, is to take the rate from $60.20 per day to $70 per day, an estimated $19.6 million. The final service is adoption. We have 1,784 of our 10,000 foster youth who are eligible for adoption. And adoption is also 100% privatized and run through about 38 agencies, also supported by the Michigan Adoption Resource Exchange, MARE, to find forever homes for 180 youth who do not have an identified adult interested in adopting them. When all efforts to reunify children with their parents have been exhausted, the next best course to ensure children can grow and thrive with family is permanency through adoption. Children awaiting adoption are representative of the gaps in our continuum. These children have been through the trauma of abuse or neglect, separation from family, termination of parental connection, trauma of multiple placement moves, multiple diagnoses, and sibling connections broken as they often watch their siblings get adopted while they themselves wait. Our system has left them with visible and invisible scars and a variety of physical, emotional, cognitive, and learning function delays. Yet these children hold out hope that a family will come soon and adopt them. Two examples from our legacy adoption services are Tyler, who is now age 17, has been waiting 9 years for a family. He has been in care since 2017 when he was just 8 years old. He's a joyful child who loves to joke around. He loves science, movies, holidays, and one-on-one attention. And he's the first one to volunteer for media opportunities when Adoption Month comes along because he truly wants a family. He has moderate physical, cognitive, and learning delays and severe emotional delays. He has spent the majority of his days in care in residential. Anthony, age 16, has been waiting 8 years for a family. He has only mild delays other than a moderate learning delay. He loves technology, music, and sports, and he dreams of traveling one day and earning his master's degree. Anthony represents many children in our care between ages of 13 and 18 who desperately want to find a family before aging out. As a Black youth, Anthony also falls into the category of children of color. When you examine the other children of color at the end of the continuum, you can see Anthony is not alone. Of 180 unmatched MARE children, 73%, or 130, are aged 13 to 18. Of those, 49% are children of color. Compared to the state of Michigan demographics, which indicates 24% or less of our Michigan kids are Black and brown children, you can readily see these children are overrepresented by nearly double in our system. This is the demographic most likely to age out without a family. Truly, we need to act much earlier in the system to intervene for our children. No child should be left lingering for this long. No child should spend the majority of their childhood as a child of the state or without family and in a residential setting. In fiscal year 25, a new adoption funding model was applied to children who were referred to adoption services. And as that year came in 10-1, the new rate model was applied. However, this left the majority of the unmatched children already in care subject to the former funding model, leaving agencies no funds to support specialized recruitment for unmatched children. These are the children that need us to double our efforts. We ask that you support an appropriation of an estimated $4.9 million to support the new adoption funding system, inclusive of grandfathering in the unmatched youth who were existing in our system when that rate came. And finally, to summarize, as we review these service lines, it's easy to see that Michigan's child welfare system is under immense strain. As we work to close out nearly 2 decades of lawsuit requirements and finalize MySIP compliance, we are also confronting severe workforce instability and foster family turnover. Administrative burden continues to rise, family needs are becoming more complex, and the cost of providing essential services has increased sharply. Without funding that reflects real costs, critical programs are at risk. Private agencies bring strong community networks, philanthropic partners, and the flexibility to meet local needs. But to truly innovate and expand, we need stronger private-public collaboration and policies that support sustainable growth. We must remove outdated barriers and act intentionally to address persistent inequities, especially for minority children who are disproportionately affected. In each of these areas, we talked about specific asks for fiscal year 27. In order to continue to strengthen forward in our system, we would also like to bring your attention to additional needs that include transparent, independent rate-setting processes, cost of living adjustments built into our multi-year contracts, fair, sustainable funding that reflects true cost of services, and legislative action to protect funding for these 3 service lines once it is received. We show up every day for Michigan families, and with your partnership, we're ready for transformation. And now I'd like to pass the mic to my colleague Ursula to talk about older youth.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. I gave Dr. Dan an assignment to get this all together. Can't do all the things, right? Did a great job. Thank you. Chairperson Roth and members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Ursula Ahart, and I'm the Executive Director of Federation of Youth Services located in Detroit, Michigan. We're a small agency, but we accept placements from across the state of Michigan. I kid with people and say I'm getting to learn every county in Michigan now. Dickinson County, I didn't know where that was, and I do now. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about the services we provide to our youth. The Federation of Youth Services provides independent living and independent living plus programming. Independent Living Plus, or ILP, is a transitional program for youth ages 16 to 20 who are temporary or permanent court wards and preparing to transition out of foster care. These are young people who cannot return home, cannot be placed in a traditional foster family setting, and for whom adoption is not planned. We accept placements for youth from across the state of Michigan. IOP provides safe, supervised housing combined with intensive life skills development. Youth live in either staff-supported housing or an approved host home. We have them maintain school or employment to participate, and they participate in budgeting and financial planning and work closely with a case manager and a life skills coach to build the necessary skills for stable adulthood. ILP is a critical part of Michigan's child welfare continuum. It serves as the bridge between foster care and stable adulthood for people who do not have a permanent family safety net to rely on. Youth referred to ILP services are coming from residential settings, often in foster homes. When we think about our own children, we reflect on when we were between the ages of 16 and 20. Most of us recognize how much guidance, structure, and accountability is still needed during those years. For youth in foster care, IOP provides that structure. As you are aware, many of our youth have experienced complex trauma, instability, and repeated placement disruptions. When youth come to our program, they are often afraid of what their future will be, and many admit that they feel lost and have no idea how to approach the next step. Our task is to build the confidence of each youth we touch and give them a path to success. For many, this is their last opportunity for structured support before they age out of care. Our agency has had many successes. Over the past 5 years, we have a 100% success rate in graduating youth by the age of 18 who came to us with at least 5 credits toward graduation. In this time period, we have graduated 12 youth, with 6 of those entering college. One young lady, Deanna, who wants me to specifically say her name, came to us with a history of abuse and neglect and over 16 foster care placements and 3 high school changes before she even got to us. After 2.5 years of stability and support with our agency, this young lady went on to graduate from high school with a 2.9 GPA, and she currently attends Ferris State University, where she is studying to be a social worker. Ironically, this youth this youth was placed with a foster care agency where I previously worked over 10 years ago, so it was sort of a homecoming. Watching her accomplish this goal was especially satisfying. She continues to be supported while at Ferris as an independent living youth by an agency in the area. However, she continues to call us weekly with new boyfriend updates and school successes. Without the treatment, stability, and care provided by my amazing team, this outcome would have been more difficult to achieve. We appreciate that the executive budget includes a recommendation in Section 546-2 that recognizes the importance of Independent Living Plus and the real cost pressures facing these programs. This proposal acknowledges rising housing costs, utilities, food, staffing, wages, and compliance requirements that directly impact the stability of IOP placements. Section 546-2 includes a per diem rate of $252.30 per day for staff-supported housing and $119.95 per day for host home housing. This reflects a 20% increase to the current IOP rates. Providers are currently operating in a workforce environment where direct care staff, those that work directly with our youth every day, can often earn more in retail or food service positions with far less responsibility. Without competitive rates, agencies struggle to recruit and retain qualified staff. When staff turnover increases, youth stability decreases. Additionally, the youth who are served in our supportive housing setting are only required by the current contract to have staff present for supervision from 3 p.m. to 7 a.m. However, since inception, many IOP programs have had to staff 24/7 to ensure youth are supervised adequately. Imagine leaving 15, 16 to 20-year-olds alone. Additionally, IOP staff supporting programs transport to school, and we have never been compensated for that shift. Our youth often struggle to maintain school placement, with many requiring online credit recovery rather than traditional school settings because they come to us with few or no high school credits. Those youth must be monitored and encouraged to participate, requiring staff supervision during the day. Also, our morning staff transport youth to school and facilitate routine medical and dental care. Agencies providing IOP have had to absorb this cost since the contract's inception in 2014. The proposed per diem adjustment helps stabilize the workforce and sustain housing options for older youth who would otherwise face homelessness or unsafe living arrangements. We know that youth aging out of care are at a heightened risk for housing instability, unemployment, and involvement with the justice system. Stable, well-supported IOP placements are not just compassionate, they are fiscally responsible. Preventing homelessness and crisis intervention costs far more than investing in structured supportive housing now. The boilerplate language also removes the requirement that IOP contracts be based on proposals submitted in response to a solicitation for pricing, an approach supported by both IOP providers and the department given the limited and specialized nature of the service area. This change is about flexibility and continuity. In a limited provider market, especially for specialized housing models like staff-supported and host home placements, rigid procurement cycles can disrupt services and discourage provider participation. Removing this requirement allows the department to negotiate rates that reflect actual costs and community needs while maintaining oversight and accountability. This is not about reducing transparency. It is about ensuring continuity of care and preventing gaps in service for youth who cannot afford instability. Just for a moment, I'd like to turn to Section 546.1 and the foster care administrative rate. The language in this section affects our youth who are placed in an independent living setting mostly, such as the youth mentioned previously who is living on her own at Ferris State University. The boilerplate maintains the $60.20 administrative rate for general foster care, independent living, and trial reunification services. It also introduces a reduction to $54.18 if providers do not meet two key performance benchmarks, 85% sibling visitation and 95% caseworker visit compliance. Let me be clear. The goals behind these benchmarks are important and worthy. Sibling visitation preserves critical family bonds. Regular caseworker visits are essential to child safety, permanency planning, and quality oversight. Accountability does matter. However, we must carefully consider how financial penalties tied to benchmarks function in practice. Providers do not operate in a vacuum. Caseworker visits can be affected by staff vacancies, geographic challenges, court schedules, transportation barriers, and public health disruptions. Sibling visitation may be impacted by placement distances, court orders, behavioral health needs, or limited foster home capacity that can accommodate sibling groups. When providers fall short of benchmarks due to systemic constraints beyond their direct control, reducing the administrative rate may unintentionally weaken the very infrastructure needed to improve performance. A reduction from $60.20 to $54.18, which, by the way, is less than the rate was in 2023, may seem modest on paper, but across hundreds of cases, it represents a significant funding loss, which includes funding that supports case management, compliance monitoring, training, and quality improvement. If we reduce resources to agencies already operating in a tight fiscal and workforce environments, we risk creating a cycle where performance challenges lead to funding cuts, which in turn make it harder to meet performance standards. As you consider advancing this language, I encourage the committee to remove the language in this section and to ensure that performance measures are paired with realistic implementation support, such as adequate staffing levels, data infrastructure, and flexibility in extraordinary circumstances. Accountability should drive improvement, not destabilization. In closing, Section 546.2 provides a necessary and responsible investment in independent living services, recognizing real cost pressures and the urgent needs of preparing youth for adulthood. Advancing this provision will protect housing stability and strengthen outcomes for some of the most vulnerable young people in our care. At the same time, as you move forward with Section 546.1, I urge careful consideration of how performance-based rate adjustments are structured and implemented so that we uphold high standards while preserving the capacity of the providers to meet them. These decisions are not simply line items in a budget. They shape the daily realities of children, youth, and families who depend on stable, well-resourced systems. Thank you very much for your time, your leadership, and your commitment to the children and families we serve. I respectfully ask for your support in advancing these provisions in a way that strengthens both accountability and stability across our child welfare system. Thank you. I will turn it over to Dan, Dr. Dan.
Thank you, Ursula. Thank you, Chairman Roth and members of the committee. Wedgwood Christian Services has been around for 66 years. We served the last 2 years youth from 43 different counties. As Michigan faces difficult fiscal realities and hard budget decisions, this truth by Frederick Douglass should guide us. When revenues tighten, our priorities become clearer. Investment in vulnerable youth, especially those who have experienced serious abuse, neglect, trauma, and court involvement, is not discretionary spending. It is preventative policy. It is fiscal responsibility and is foundational to the long-term strength of our state. If we fail to build our state, our strong children, and we fail to do that now, we will pay exponentially more later, either in corrections, emergency care, lost productivity, and generational instability. The work before us today is about building strength at the front end of the system so we are not forced to repair damage at the back end. The reality we witness every day is that foster care and residential treatment system is not functioning as a true continuum. Last week, MLive published an article that underscores our current state. Our system lacks sufficient stable placement options. a workforce that can support them, along with the therapeutic environments these skills with high acuity need. Our way forward is strengthened with a collaborative approach. If one entity controls the thermostat, controls the windows, and controls the furnace, that one entity bears responsibility for the temperature of the room. The temperature of our current child welfare system isn't functioning correctly. Most importantly, collaboration has become cold. It's become procedural rather than relational. As a result, higher acuity youth who need intensive residential care are left navigating delays and placement mismatches instead of receiving the warm, therapeutic environments that foster care, healing, and the opportunity to improve their lives. We need to build a sustainable, collaborative system of care that is about shared design, shared responsibility, and shared outcomes. Michigan's child welfare continuum is complex, isn't it? You can see many of the boxes on the left that Rachel talked about, and independent living you can see on the bottom right that Ursula talked about. Michigan's child welfare continuum is only as strong as its highest acuity capacity. Today, that capacity is limited by operational staffing, workforce fragility, and unstable residential environments. We can't fix that by just adding more beds, although that is also needed. We have to stabilize our workforce, the adults who care for our most vulnerable youth first. Residential treatment and psychiatric residential treatment serve youth with severe trauma, behavioral dysregulation, and co-occurring mental health needs. The population that they serve have faced more trauma and challenges in their young lives than anyone ever should. These facilities provide a structured environment, offer long-duration treatment, and serve court-involved youth diverted from incarceration, and provide a step-down continuity from psychiatric hospitals. Residential care is a clinical intervention tier within Michigan's child welfare continuum. We must prioritize therapeutic appropriateness. Without it, children with high needs end up in foster care with families who can't manage their behaviors. Not only is that not fair to the families who are willing to help our foster care kids, but it impedes the growth and potential of the children we have the responsibility to care for, doesn't it? Youth who don't have placement options end up in inappropriate placements or emergency departments. Their juvenile justice involvement escalates and out-of-state placements increase. None of these serve anyone, not the child, not foster families, and not the state of Michigan. Our best studies through contract modeling determine a targeted 680 therapeutic beds. Our current contract capacity includes 390 child care institution treatment beds. And by the way, I just heard in the last month that number is going to go down, just in the last week. These existing contracted beds operate, I'm estimating, at about 85%. That's roughly 338 operational beds. Because we have an overburdened system in the state of Michigan, it limits our ability to match the best treatment option for a youth to an available opening. Instead, many youth are placed in a first open bed out of necessity. A rebalanced system models 677 contracted beds operating at about an increased 90% utilization rate. This results in 609 operational therapeutic beds. This change represents a net operational gain of approximately 271 treatment beds and opens up capacity to allow youth access to programming that meets their unique needs. This expansion would distribute acuity more safely. It stabilizes the staffing ratios, it reduces burnout, and it lowers reliance on restraint and seclusion. That roughly 680 targeted therapeutic beds defines the level at which Michigan high acuity residential treatment system can stabilize. The question before us is not whether we need that capacity, it's how we intentionally can move forward. A $2 million residential and juvenile justice innovation grant is a disciplined, targeted investment that helps close those gaps, illustrated in this by the bridges. That's overcoming the gaps were created by the constrictions. These grants would allow providers to develop new services and invest in infrastructure that increases placement capacity for youth. This innovation funding directly supports stabilization and treatment rather than detention, reducing recidivism, lowering long-term contract correction costs, and improving public safety outcome. Workforce stability is the single most important investment necessary to stabilize Michigan residential treatment capacity. This is not a reactive response to crisis. It is a proactive structural strategy to anchor Michigan's child welfare continuum. If we do not stabilize and develop the adults who provide that care, no amount of bed expansion modeling will translate into operational capacity. Our workforce our workforce is our most appreciable asset, isn't it? And when we strengthen that asset, we expand both the capacity and the capability of the entire residential treatment system. Residential programs require licensed clinicians with specialized trauma and behavioral health expertise. Yet recruitment and retention remain extraordinarily difficult without meaningful financial incentives. A behavioral health loan repayment program provides student loan repayment support to clinicians who commit to serving high-need behavioral health roles. Without these incentives, residential treatment programs lose clinicians to hospital systems and other higher-pay settings because they have options. A loan repayment is not a discretionary benefit. It is a workforce stabilization tool that directly determines whether residential beds are operational. Beyond clinician recruitment, we must stabilize the broader frontline workforce that anchors residential care. Building a registered apprenticeship model for youth treatment specialists allows Michigan to create a predictable, credentialed workforce pipeline that with paid on-the-job training, stackable credentials, clear career ladders from entry-level roles through supervisory and clinical pathways. Combined with trauma-informed leadership development and structured onboarding, reduce turnover and increase sustainable capacity. In closing, the 680-bed targeted treatment capacity is not aspirational. It is stabilization threshold for Michigan's high acuity youth system. A net gain of 271 operational beds would materially reduce waiting lists, out-of-state placements, and placement mismatches. But the math only works if the workforce works. Beds do not stabilize systems. People do. Our greatest constraint is recruitment, retention, and development of a pipeline of skilled behavioral health care workforce. This is why we're asking for 3 targeted investments: the $2 million residential and juvenile justice innovation grant to expand treatment capacity and clinical infrastructure, a $1.5 million expansion for the behavioral health loan repayment program to strengthen clinician recruitment and retention statewide, and continued support for building a registered apprenticeship and structured workforce pipeline to stabilize frontline staffing. These are not isolated line items. Together, they represent a structural workforce strategy. If we invest now, we can expand capacity, stabilize placements, reduce recidivism, and move Michigan closer to exiting prolonged federal oversight. If we delay, demographic pressures and workforce shortages will compound and capacity will continue to erode. The youth we serve are not abstractions in a spreadsheet. They are children who have endured trauma, instability, and repeated failure by adults. With the right workforce, the right structure, and the right investment, they can stabilize, they can heal, and they can build productive lives. Thank you for your leadership on this issue and for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you all very much. I got about 1,000 questions myself, but I don't want to do that. I'll let the members talk. Well, I just ask first the beds. That is a huge concern. The number just keeps going down, and facilities that are still operating are only operating about 85%, and I think that's probably a plus compared to some of them are probably more like 70 or 75%. But we have to increase the beds in Michigan, or we're going to continue to send kids out of state. As I see, we're probably old numbers, but about 122 juvenile justice kids out of state, 149 waiting to go out of state. Now, that's not just DHHS, that's our counties also, but if they're out of state, they're not getting the treatment. That doesn't make sense to me. Are we going to continue to traumatize these kids by sending them out of state and not making sure we get the services that they need? So that one really bothers me, and I'll let others ask questions now. Who do we got first? Vice Chair Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all for being here. I do, as a former child welfare specialist that worked in foster care, adoptions, kids aging out of foster care, I actually started my journey on the actual day of 9/11. And as a worker, we try not to put children in mirror because it's a catalog of children, almost looks like an auction, which is really disappointing in how that system looks. But I encourage my colleagues to check out mirror.com to get an idea of what I'm saying. But anyway, the estimated in this, I think you mentioned it, $4.9 million to support a new adoption funding system, and it includes a program for all unmatched children. What does that look like? Because what we currently have in place doesn't work. It works, but it doesn't. It's inhumane is what I would consider it. It's not that bad, but it's just, we have to have something different and something better for children besides just a catalog of children that we can flip through the pages and look at them. I mean, they take beautiful photos. Sometimes they get a professional photographer that takes these photos. Mm-hmm. It enhances their personality. The way we write the report about them is really uplifting and bright. It's beautiful. But there has to be another way to showcase these children that is not similar to auction.
Thank you so much for that question. And so that $4.9 million is part of the adoption funding that goes to the 38 agencies who have the responsibility for the individual children. So MARE is an additional service that supports recruitment and is operating in tandem with these agencies. So the $4.9 million specifically goes to the agencies to do individual recruitment that is more specific to the child, a community, and a targeted type of family with already built-in skill sets that could provide the compassion and support and love for a child, which is done on a much smaller scale and is not fully advertised the way that MARE would do that. But since we don't have the funding for the children who were not grandfathered into the new model, it is really difficult for us. We pay for an entire recruitment worker and additional staff. We need them to get out there and talk to people about the children, to meet the children and have an experience with them, that they're not just a picture with some pretty little facts, right? And so we offer matching opportunities, time in with the children. All of that takes time, funding, travel, staffing, and we can't afford to do it without additional funding that supports it.
Thank you. May I ask one more question? This is to piggyback on what the chair mentioned, more beds, but staff retention. Is there an idea on how we can maintain staff, get them back in there? Because we can get more beds, but if we don't have workers to maintain them, then it's not going to be successful.
Thank you for that. That's exactly the issue. And I think the demographics are not in our favor, right? The baby boomers are getting older and retiring in more numbers. And so it's not going to be long. By 2030, there's going to be only 2.5 workers for every one retired individual. So we have a more constricted workforce to work from, and we need to compete in a competitive market for talent to do the work. And so, like the loan forgiveness, where you have or your most talented and your most educated individuals, licensed master social workers, that are key to making this work, and how that translates into staff real time engaging the treatment plan in real moments. They have options. They can go work for the school. There's a loan repayment plan option there. Our rates are about the same as far as wages, but they get 2.5 months off, and it's hard to compete with that. There's other opportunities, FQHCs. They can get they get student loan written off in 3 years. Ours is 10. And so that's literally a $20,000 more pay raise that they can get on other options. We're asking for an opportunity to compete. There's a delta there. So we do market assessments every year. And so we have a great mission. We have amazing staff. And we try our best to pay in that range where our culture can bridge the gap between what might other options they have available to us. But these are wonderful people, have families, and they want to feed their families, and they want a dry place to sleep. And so when you're competing in that open market, how are we prioritizing services, the people that are taking care of the next generation? There's research out there that the effects of severe trauma last 7 generations if untreated. And so the work that these clinicians are doing on the front lines with our frontline staff has amazing benefits and a generational return on that investment. And so I think what we're trying to ask for here is how can we compete in that space for the talent to do this good work?
Thank you for that, Dan. I appreciate the vice chair has been working on some things too. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll let you talk in just 1 second. But we got to protect these workers. What we're seeing is not good. The number of workers that are being injured on the job is increasing. That's acuity and everything else that's out there. But not only do we need to maybe pay them more, we need to make sure they're safe and can go home to their families at night too. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I also wanted to respond on the foster care side. Each of us are here because we have a heart for what we're doing today. And we don't have a lack of heart in the next generation of workforce. We're making it really difficult for them to be productive in these services because the system is much more complicated than it needs to be. It's full of inefficiencies, and over 60% of the job that our foster care workers are doing is not to interact with a family or a child. It's overly complex, and they are doing paperwork, they're doing redundant things, they are watching children fall through the cracks, and they don't want to be a part of that. They want to see children succeed, and they want to use their mission heart in a way that is truly impactful. We have to change the system, and then we need to show this next generation how valuable this work is.
Thank you. Maybe expand on the family preservation. How does the advertising for families to know about these services? How is that done? Do you have to do it on your own, or is there any collaborations? How does that work?
Fortunately, we have just done a lot of work on family preservation, despite only being able to serve 4,400 families. We have launched a My Family Together statewide. All 83 counties will be working in this new program. Referrals can come directly through gatekeepers at the state of Michigan in every county. If families are calling in, for example, the 211 line, and they're saying, I need support, I need help, they're funneling and making their way into attention of perhaps some workers in those counties. They can be referred directly. We're also working with tribes and domestic violence shelters. So we can do some advertising. Mostly we do that through collaborations, coalitions, community partnerships with other providers, and helping families to tell their story, because the lived experience and those successes are what encourage the families who are tentative to hang back. These are voluntary services, and we want them to step into them.
Go ahead, Janet.
Thank you, Chair Roth. If I might add to, thank you, Rachel, for outlining the family preservation services and access to that. We're very excited about the new program that Rachel referenced, My Family Together, which is truly a partnership between the Michigan Department for Health and Human Services and the community-based organizations to approach family preservation through family preservation services through a multi-generational or two-gen approach. There has been a lot of success shown already in the pilot, which launched about a year and a half ago, to show that for the number of families enrolled in My Family Together, 95% of children stayed home safely. Enrolled and completed. 95% of the children in those families stayed home safely. So we're very excited about the statewide expansion later this year, which points back to the essential nature of funding the expansion as well, so that all families eligible for family preservation services have equitable access to that. Thank you for letting me add that.
No, thanks, Janet. Now, how young of a child is a family eligible for the preservation services? Start at birth? I mean, where do we go?
0 to 18.
Okay,
Correct.
good. One more question for you guys. Anybody can answer who might have it. How do you work with DHHS to help recruit foster families? Do you have a say in that? I know we're losing them just as fast as we can gain them. But how do you guys work within that with the department to try and recruit?
We appreciate any partnership with the department. Some funding is available. The department has foster families as well and supports 45% of those foster care services and placements. Each of the counties generally have recruitment plans, and when you're an agency as large as mine, covering statewide, that actually adds some complication because we need to attach to a state plan in every county. And that gives us sometimes less time resource in order for us to do more robust grassroots efforts in ways that we can reach our communities and our partnerships differently. We bring a lot to the table with our connections. So we need to reinvent how we are doing that and to consider what resources are there, how those can be better innovatively used to go for parents who are maybe more prepared and more aligned with the needs of the children.
Thank you. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, Vice Chair Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to address a couple of overriding themes that I always seem to have with this committee. One is in the Samaritas testimony here, there's a paragraph. Our system has left them with a visible and invisible scars and variety of physical, emotional, cognitive, learning functions delays. So the system itself, to some degree, is responsible for this. And yet you come here year after year saying the next dollar will fix this. Just throwing that out. The other overriding theme I have is once hooked on a program, we keep you hooked. We don't ever let you go. We want you involved in a government system from cradle to grave. Here's a perfect example, the lady at Ferris State. You've done what you could. You took her from basically a broken girl, got her through high school with a 2-point GPA average, got her into University State Ferris, or Ferris State. She's learning to be a social worker, but yet you've still got her in an independent living program. Doesn't sound like she really needs this. But it doesn't stop there. Because she's studying to be a social worker, we're going to take care of her on the back end and pay for her loan with the behavioral loan repayment system. So again, you were successful with this girl, and you won't let her go. Why?
If
Yeah,
I may
please.
respond. If you think about, I have a 26-year-old. She calls me the iPhone Pro Max because she's still asking me questions today. Just to get through life, things come up. When she was at 18 years old, if she didn't have me or have anybody else to support her, where did she get those answers? And the reason why this young lady continues to have services up to the age of 20, and it's only to the age of 20, is because they need that support. 18 is not a magic age, right? And for a youth that is traumatized and has had multiple placement disruptions, very little support, no familial support, you just don't throw them out there.
She overcame those things.
Has she? I mean, and there's also, there are always questions. We're only keeping her till she's 20 at this point.
There's need, I suspect, across the board.
Absolutely, always
But
need.
This empathy-driven missions that go beyond, I mean, you talk to yourself. You're failing, we're failing our own people, yet you want to expand services. You want another 1,100 families that you're currently not doing well with the ones you've got, yet you want 1,100 more. This is the thing that just seems to me is just terribly frustrating, sitting in a legislator's perspective, where it's just you keep coming, sir, the next hour will get better. Education does it, welfare does it, everybody does it.
If I could ask you, what age do you think support stops for youth? Your normal, everyday youth, what age does support stop?
Hopefully, they have a family system that takes care of whatever things, but we cannot
Absolutely.
keep bubble wrapping people and suspect that they're going to be supported through their whole life.
These youth don't have a family system and they've experienced enormous trauma. And in order for them to be successful in life, so you don't have to see them incarcerated or any of those other awful options that exist out there, to give them the support early is humane.
My point is none of
It
the
is humane.
support stops any of that.
I'm sorry?
None of the support seems to stop any of that.
Well, none of the support
We have
stops
higher
that for
acuity
regular
now
people.
than we have ever had, and yet you people have been doing this for decades and decades and decades. I just don't understand how it seems to me the more we focus on it, the more we'll get.
I appreciate your perspective.
Vice Chair Edwards.
Thank you. Do you guys have any foster care or adoption applications? Maybe we should have him go through the training to get a better understanding of what these children look like.
See no other questions? Appreciate it very much, guys. Thanks for coming before us, and I'm sure we'll talk again because there's a ton of more questions that I could have asked today. But thank you,
Mr.
guys.
Chair and committee members, thank you very much. We're glad to come back anytime and happy to answer the questions.
Yeah, appreciate
you.
that. The Committee on House Appropriations is adjourned. No.